Welcome back to the channel, and what I thought I'd do for this video is go through some of the Crocodile clips and other test connection methods I've got for connecting onto high voltage apparatus when I'm carrying out electrical tests on them. So this is pretty much the full range of them. What I'll do is set up for each set so you can look at them individually, and I'll give you a bit more information on them. So I'll rearrange things and we'll take a closer look at some of the clips. So we'll start with my favourite set of clips. These are the TLK 1550 from Fluke. These actually come with their 10 kV insulation test set. Really large jaw capacity on these, which is handy for getting around larger sets of apparatus. So they will go up to 40mm, just over 1.5 inch jaw capacity. And they're great for testing. This is a 14,000 volt surge arrestor I've got here, M16 connection on the top there, so they go dead easy, loads of space to go around the nut there and definitely onto the thread. They have this kind of curved jaw within them that goes around threaded connectors or large stabbings on electrical apparatus and make a good connection. As well as that, they have a standard 4mm safety connector built into the handle here, so I can use them not just with the 10 kV insulation tester, but pretty much with any piece of apparatus that uses a standard 4mm lead. Get a little lead here, and you can see dead easy goes in there, and I can make a connection. Downside to these is that they are no longer available. Fluke, in their wisdom, have stopped making connectors like this and actually make them with the lead moulded onto them now. And an example of that kind of lead is this one here. This one's from Metrol, and you can see that it's pretty much made a similar sort of size. These are a little bit kinder on your fingers. My hand's quite stretched when these are fully open, but these are a little bit easier to operate in that manner, but very similar jaw capacity, if not a little bit more on the Metrol. The problem being with them being a moulded lead, which is the problem I have with the moulded leads from these, is that the connector is bespoke for the 5 kV tester. You can't really use that. It's recessed right the way up inside the safety shroud here, and you can't use this on other instruments other than the tester they come with. What you also tend to find as well around the collar here, some different manufacturers have different locking mechanisms to put it into the tester. So you may find that the ones from Fluke wouldn't actually fit into the Metrol because the locking mechanism will stop it from going in. Likewise, I'm not sure what locking mechanism the Fluke use, but it may not be compatible with other instruments, and certainly not compatible with standard insulation testers or micrometers, whatever I'm intending to use. But nonetheless, they are a very nice Crocodile clip, and they do get a fair bit of use. As an alternative to those, these are from Sonel. I'll put the part number up for these on screen because it's quite a long one. I don't want to read it out, but similar sort of jaw capacity to the Fluke here. And again, these come with a Sonel insulation tester. However, the jaws are kind of flat. They don't have the same kind of curvature, but they still will go around. M16, loads of spare capacity there, you can see. And grip quite nicely. They go onto the threads as well. Again, grip reasonably well. They do have a standard 4mm connector up them, but it's a kind of longer reach, so you actually have to have the Sonel lead to plug into the Crocodile end, but it will plug into the standard 4mm socket on the instrument, so these have a bit more flexibility than the new style offered by Fluke there. If I get standard 4mm, you'll see, again, this is long reach at this end, so this end will go in and will grip, no problems, and standard 4mm connector kind of starts to go in. But as you see, it just drops out. So you do have to use a special lead at this end, but you can use standard 4mm at the other end. So these are quite useful. They get a little bit of use, but tend to stay with my Sonel insulation tester really. slight variation on these, whereas those last two sets are high voltage, low current. These two clamps I have here from GB Italy, these are low voltage, high current, and they will actually allow up to 500 amps. I got them from an automotive place because they're actually jump lead Crocodile clips. I've just modified them to have this M8 stud at the bottom here, and then what I can do is get my high current lead and I can put him over there and screw him on. I have a test connection. For high current I inject around about 100 amps through these leads, but that's a pretty good methodology for me to making that high current test connection. If I just want to use the jaw capacity on them, and these do have quite a good jaw capacity, then what I do have is these little adapters from Staubli. These are GBSA adapters. This particular one is threaded M8. They do them M8, M12, M16, although they are pretty expensive. And you can screw them onto there, and then I can plug a standard 4mm safety connector in there, and I've got a generalised low current, high voltage test connector should I want it. These ones I tend to use a little bit on switchgear if I want to make high current connections for testing the resistance of joints and vacuum bottles and the like. Let's say a fair bit of good jaw capacity on there, easily comparable to the Fluke there. So again, another good 40mm, 1.5" jaw capacity on these, and made up in red and black. I guess the only other thing just to note with the Sonel, these are available in a blue clamp as well for a guard terminal, whereas the Fluke and the GB Italy I've just got in red and black. Moving on a little bit, slightly smaller set of clamps. These clamps are from Schutzinger, I should say Crocodile clips really. I've just bought them recently. They have a standard 4mm safety built into them, and these are quite good for 415 volt switchgear, slightly larger contactors. If I want to make connections onto them, they will go onto an M16. There's the thread there. They will just sneak over a nut if you get them right. There you go, and lock onto a nut as well. But that really is the maximum jaw capacity of these here really, so slightly smaller than the previous sets that I've shown you. But as I say, standard 4mm. I use them on 400 volt switchgear, contactors, motors, that kind of arrangement. They're a little bit too big for a standard Crocodile clip, which we could actually show you, actually, couldn't we? Yeah, why didn't I do that earlier? This is a standard AC 285 Shore Grip clip from Fluke. It actually came with a 10 kV test set as well. But you can look at the kind of jaw capacity this gives you and sizing. So very, very similar to 2C85. The only advantage is these have more curvature for going around threaded or round connector stabbings. If you compare them to a Fluke, which I should have done earlier really. So you can see the sheer size of the Fluke large Crocodile clip against the standard one. It just fits in the hand grip there, and jaw capacity wise quite a bit bigger, and as I say, has better curvature for going around round connectors. So those ones there and those ones there. These ones here I set these up as Kelvin leads. These are actually from Mueller. They are the BU111-2 connectors, again only available in red or black, but I use this if I want to do resistance measurements on contactors across the contactor itself with the 4-wire setup. Again, nicely curvature, easily on an M16 nut, around the thread there, dead easy, and quite a nice little test setup, and relatively cheap as well. So they're quite handy. And we then move on to sort of more homebrew style connectors. The main obvious one being these. These are G-clamps, 3-inch G-clamps. So again, I have a wing nut on here and an M8 thread, so I can put my lead onto that bolt and clamp it down Alternatively, I have sometimes clamped an actual connector plate with the lead onto this, clamp that against the flag terminal that I'm testing, or even just clamp the lead directly itself onto the face of the flag there, and then put this around and tighten up in that manner. So 2 or 3 different ways that I can use these, but very, very good for large flag terminals, not so good for buzz bar arrangements. You'll get on the outer phases, but you won't get on the inner phase. So they do have some limitation, but do increase the connection capacity when required. As I say, just homebrew, you get these dirt cheap from any DIY store and just make them up yourself. You can get proper connectors. They're usually sold as earth connectors for high voltage apparatus. They cost an absolute fortune, but they are out there if you prefer to go down that route rather than making your own. So that's those ones there. As I did just show, I have this clamp plate here. I have 2 of these. This clamp plate is made for a bespoke connection onto rotor slip rings in order to be able to test the windings. You can see there's a slight curvature to the plate, so it sits around the slip ring in that manner. I then use, this is a standard free end ratchet strap, again from DIY stores, and you feed him through the loop here, and that will wrap all the way around the slip ring and go back through the ratchet, and I can clamp this down onto the surface of the slip ring, and that's good for a good 100 amp I've had flowing through to test rotor windings. Again, the actual connection is made up here onto the M8 stud here with a wing nut, and just slip it over there, tighten it down, and that's a very good reliable connection for the large round surfaces on slip rings. The slight alternative to that is to use these uninsulated Crocodile clips here, as opposed to going on the surface. These go in between the ridges of a slip ring and will grip quite nicely, and then you're gripping on the sides and you're not scratching the surface of the slip ring where the brushes run onto. And I use this particular test set is made up for AC impedance testing to inject the AC voltage onto the rotor slip rings and consequently into the winding. So this little test set will always sit with that piece of test apparatus. And then the absolute final one, we've got these from Staubli. These are horrific price. They are Staubli grapper clips 669435-21. Again, I'll put the part number up on the screen. They're really for connection to flat terminals. They will go onto something like a nut, but you don't get the full connection surface that you see there. The connection is only via this bottom clamp. The top foot here is insulated. They'll go around the M10 down the bottom here easy enough, no problem. And what you can actually do is open up the jaw by twisting this up and pushing back, twisting again, and then you have a larger capacity, and they will actually go around the M16 there. But what I tend to use these for is connection onto flat buzz bars, flat earth bars if I want a connection to a reference earth. These are very good for that kind of connection. But as I said, quite an expensive option. You need to do a lot of testing of that kind of methodology in order to justify the kind of expenditure on these, really. But that's pretty much it for this video and the test connections that I use. Hope you found it useful. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you again in another video.